exploring the evolution and impact of the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation stands as a pivotal decree in American history, issued by President Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War on January 1, 1863. It declared the freedom of slaves in Confederate states, marking a significant moral and strategic shift in the Union's approach to the war and redefining the fight for human rights. Before 1863, the United States was deeply divided over the issue of slavery, with Southern states relying on slave labor for their agricultural economy, while Northern states increasingly opposed the institution. Tensions escalated into political and social conflicts, contributing to the outbreak of the Civil War in 1861. Abraham Lincoln's presidency began in 1861, with the nation on the brink of collapse. Initially, his primary aim was to preserve the Union, but his personal abhorrence of slavery increasingly influenced his policies. By mid-war, Lincoln saw abolishing slavery as essential to achieving peace and justice. The road to the Emancipation Proclamation included several key events. The Union's shaky start in the Civil War underscored the need for a decisive action that would weaken the Confederacy's resources. Lincoln's preliminary emancipation announcement followed the Union victory at the Battle of Antietam in September 1862. The Union's military strategy played a critical role in shaping the Emancipation Proclamation. By declaring slaves in rebel territories free, Lincoln aimed to destabilize the Southern economy, which heavily depended on slave labor. This strategic move also aimed to prevent foreign powers from siding with the Confederacy by framing the conflict around the moral issue of slavery. The initial draft of the Emancipation Proclamation underwent significant revisions before its final issuance. Abraham Lincoln carefully considered the feedback from his cabinet, balancing the legal and moral implications to ensure the document would withstand scrutiny and achieve its profound purpose of liberating enslaved individuals in the rebelling states. The Emancipation Proclamation was issued under Lincoln's authority as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, using war powers to target the rebellion's resources, specifically slavery. This legal basis was crucial, as it framed the proclamation as a necessary act of war, rather than a mere moral statement, to weaken the Confederacy. Immediate reactions to the proclamation varied widely across the United States. In the North, it was met with jubilation and renewed resolve to support the war effort, seeing it as a step towards true abolition. Conversely, the Confederate States denounced the proclamation, viewing it as an incitement of slave insurrection. In the North, public opinion was deeply divided before the proclamation, but shifted positively afterward. The framing of the war as a fight for human freedom garnered greater support among Unionists. The proclamation also strengthened the resolve of abolitionists and drew more people to their cause, consolidating anti-slavery sentiment. The impact of the Emancipation Proclamation on the Confederacy was profound. It not only deprived the Southern states of much-needed labor, but also struck a severe blow to their economic and social structure. Moreover, it dissuaded Britain and France from intervening on behalf of the Confederacy, isolating it further internationally. The Emancipation Proclamation not only altered the course of the Civil War, but also had significant implications in international relations. Britain and France, which had been contemplating support for the Confederacy, were compelled to reconsider their positions. The proclamation framed the conflict as a fight against slavery, aligning it with European anti-slavery sentiments, thereby discouraging any potential alliances with the Confederate States. The morale of Union troops was profoundly influenced by the Emancipation Proclamation. It provided a new moral compass for the war, transforming it from a battle for union to a fight for human freedom. This ideological shift bolstered the resolve of soldiers and increased their determination to fight, knowing they were part of a noble cause. Following the issuance of the Emancipation Proclamation, the Union Army opened its ranks to African American soldiers. This not only increased manpower, but also gave the war effort a moral dimension. The bravery and success of Black regiments in battle challenged prevailing racial prejudices and highlighted the injustice of slavery. The Civil War saw several pivotal battles and turning points after the Emancipation Proclamation. Notably, the proclamation helped prevent European powers from aiding the Confederacy, which shifted the strategic balance. Key battles such as Gettysburg, which occurred post-proclamation, were critical in determining the ultimate outcome of the war. The Emancipation Proclamation laid the groundwork for future legal changes, influencing the drafting and eventual ratification of the 13th Amendment, which formally abolished slavery. This sequence of events underscored the proclamation's role not merely as a wartime measure, but as a catalyst for broader social and legal reforms in America. President Lincoln's policies shifted dramatically during the Civil War, reflecting the evolving military and political landscape. Initially, his primary goal was to preserve the Union, but as the war progressed, the abolition of slavery became increasingly integral to his administration's objectives, culminating in the Emancipation Proclamation. Criticism of the Emancipation Proclamation was widespread, particularly among those who viewed it as an overreach of executive power or detrimental to the economy. Some Northern Democrats opposed it on the grounds that it would prolong the war by inciting Southern resistance, while others feared the impact of freed slaves on the labor market. Conversely, abolitionists hailed the Emancipation Proclamation as a monumental step towards justice and equality. Figures like Frederick Douglass and William Lloyd Garrison praised Lincoln for his decisive action, which redefined the war as a battle, not just for the Union, but for human freedom. The decision to issue the Emancipation Proclamation was influenced by various key figures around Lincoln. Secretary of State William Seward advised waiting for a Union victory to announce it to avoid seeming desperate, while radical Republicans pushed for immediate action to weaken the Confederacy's labor force. The text of the Emancipation Proclamation itself was crafted to balance legal and military necessity. It declared the freedom of slaves in Confederate states as a war measure, thus preventing its immediate challenge in court. However, it intentionally excluded Union border states and specific regions under Northern control. The Emancipation Proclamation notably excluded certain regions, such as the border states and specific areas under Union control. This strategic choice helped maintain political alliances crucial to the war effort, but raised questions about the consistency and universality of the anti-slavery commitment. Military enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation was robust but uneven, reflecting the complex terrain of war. Union troops were tasked with enforcing freedom in Confederate areas they controlled, a directive that was as much a military strategy as it was a moral stance, complicating the proclamation's implementation. The Southern economy, heavily reliant on slave labor, was significantly disrupted by the Emancipation Proclamation. The loss of labor forces destabilized plantation economies, hastening the South's overall decline during the Civil War and impacting economic structures long after the war ended. As the war progressed, the objectives of the Emancipation Proclamation evolved. Initially a measure to weaken Confederate resources, it gradually became a moral cornerstone of the Union war effort, symbolizing a commitment to abolition and reshaping the Union's international image and domestic policy. The legacy of the Emancipation Proclamation extends into modern civil rights movements. It laid foundational ideas for equality and freedom that activists have cited through history, illustrating its enduring influence on struggles for justice and civil rights long beyond its immediate legal ramifications. Public commemorations of the Emancipation Proclamation serve as a reminder of the struggles for freedom and the achievements in civil rights. Each year, various events and ceremonies are held to honor this pivotal moment in history, reinforcing its significance across generations and continuing to inspire discussions on equality and justice. The cultural memory of the Emancipation Proclamation is preserved through literature, films, and artworks that explore its impact and the broader context of the Civil War. These cultural artifacts help educate the public, evoke emotional responses, and keep the stories of those affected by the proclamation alive. Comparative analyses of the Emancipation Proclamation and other global liberation policies highlight a universal struggle for human rights. By examining these alongside one another, scholars can draw parallels and differences that shed light on the unique or common challenges faced in the pursuit of freedom and equality. The Emancipation Proclamation marks a significant point in the timeline of the abolition of slavery, acting as a catalyst for further legislative and social reforms. It laid foundational ideas that spurred movements toward the eventual abolition of slavery across different regions and influenced subsequent human rights advocacies. Personal stories from those directly impacted by the Emancipation Proclamation provide heart-rending insights into the real-life implications of this historic decree. These accounts form an emotional narrative that complements the factual history, making the proclamation's effects more tangible and relatable to people everywhere. Scholarly debates about the Emancipation Proclamation's effectiveness continue to stir interest. Historians argue over its immediate impact on slavery and its broader implications for civil rights. Some view it as a crucial step in a longer journey towards equality, while others believe it was more symbolic than substantive. The Reconstruction era extended the principles laid out in the Emancipation Proclamation, aiming to rebuild the South and ensure rights for freed slaves. This period saw significant, though often temporary, advancements for African Americans, including voting rights and political representation, which were later undermined by Jim Crow laws. Educational approaches to teaching the Emancipation Proclamation vary widely. Some curricula emphasize its role in ending slavery and advancing the Civil War, while others focus on its limitations and the subsequent struggle for civil rights. The teaching methods can influence students' understanding of American history and racial justice. The preservation of documents related to the Emancipation Proclamation plays a crucial role in historical scholarship. Archives and museums work to maintain these artifacts, ensuring that future generations can access the original texts. Digital preservation and online archives have expanded access, allowing a global audience to study this pivotal document. Technology played a pivotal role in spreading the news of the Emancipation Proclamation. Telegraphs and newspapers rapidly disseminated Lincoln's words across the Union, reaching a wide audience. This instant communication helped to rally support for the Union cause and informed slaves in Confederate states of their declared freedom. The Emancipation Proclamation not only altered the course of the Civil War, but also set foundational principles for American democracy. By declaring the freedom of slaves in Confederate states, it challenged the status quo and laid the groundwork for a more inclusive understanding of rights and liberties. The relationship between the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment is profound. While the proclamation initially freed slaves in rebellious states, the 13th Amendment permanently abolished slavery across the entire nation, cementing the ideals of freedom and equality into the Constitution. The influence of the Emancipation Proclamation extends into modern civil liberties in the United States. It was an early stepping stone towards the civil rights movements that would transform the nation's social landscape, proving that legal measures could help drive societal change. The relevance of the Emancipation Proclamation continues in today's discussions on social justice and racial equality. It serves as a historical benchmark for evaluating progress and a reminder of the ongoing struggle against systemic inequality and for the dignity of all individuals. In reassessing the impact and legacy of the Emancipation Proclamation, it's clear that this document was more than a wartime measure. It was a bold declaration of equality and human rights that continues to resonate in American society, shaping discussions and policies regarding freedom and justice.